Good day, listeners. You've tuned in to More Than a Funeral, Voices of the Red River Valley, powered by Corsmo Funeral and Cremation Service right here in Moorhead, Minnesota. My name is Tom, and I'm going to be your host today. And whether you are listening on your computer, maybe your phone, car, any other kind of device, and possibly even your tractor or combine, we welcome you here to today's episode. We all know there are so many funeral-related podcasts of interest dealing with so many various issues, but our focus is going to be on the personal aspect of relationships and the multitude of interesting people and organizations that like to call the Red River Valley their home. And on occasion, we might push the edge a little bit, discuss some of those controversial issues. We all know what we're talking about. Red Jell-O. Is it appropriate to serve at church potlucks anymore, or is it a taboo subject? And there's so many other things such as hot dish, casserole. What's the difference between the two anyway? So, we invite you to sit back for a few minutes, grab yourself a blistering hot cup of Lutheran Church coffee, and enjoy the conversation. We are glad you stopped by to listen. Well, good afternoon, podcasters. You are tuned in to More Than a Funeral, Voices of the Red River Valley. My name is Tom Pence. I'm your host today, and we have episode number 13 today. It's really a pleasure of mine to have a great conversation today with Chaplain Steve Streed. If you don't mind, Steve, can I just refer to you as Steve?
Right.
Save myself some words. But Steve Streed, I've been wanting to do this interview for quite some time. I've known you for over 30 years. It dates us. And ever since I've come to Corsmo Funeral and Cremation Service, doing services down at Eventide. And we have had great conversations, and I just know you're a wealth of information and interests, and in addition to great jokes. So we might have to throw a one or two of those in there. But Chaplain Steve is the senior chaplain at Eventide Lutheran Home. That's what I call it, but what is the official term for it now?
Yeah, that's a good question, Tom. We have removed the name Lutheran off there, right, though it began with a pastor in 1950 on an onion field, yep, with 27 churches that were affiliated with the Lutheran Church. Okay. And now we just feel that pretty much the whole gamut of all the denominations that we serve, we just have it as Eventide Senior Living Communities.
Okay, all right.
And yes.
Well, we're going to come back to how that all came about, but let's just start a little bit about the young Steve Streed, at least what is available to the public, what hasn't been, what do they call it, redacted?
Yeah, okay.
But you're from Rockford, Illinois,
Illinois.
That's west of the metro area of Chicago?
That's west, yeah. To O'Hare Airport, it'd be 90 miles right on the tollway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So tell us a little bit about your days in Rockford. You worked, I'll give you a little bit of an intro. I know you really have a great background in art. You worked for your dad. Your dad was a commercial artist.
Yes.
And I'm kind of stealing your thunder here. So let me just let you run with it. And after 45 minutes, I'll change the subject.
Okay, yeah. I was brought up in Rockford, Illinois. Dad was advertising. Mom worked in various retail stores. Have an older brother and older sister, and their families are in Rockford, Illinois, still today. And as I grew up, it was about ninth grade that I started to serve an apprenticeship with my dad after school. So by the time I was a senior in high school, I'd served 4 years with him, and he taught me lettering, layout, all aspects of graphics. Nowadays, a lot of graphics are done on the computer. We pretty much did everything by hand, and it was it was an art in the sense.
Yeah.
And so after high school, I stayed out for a year and just decided I'm not going to college like everybody else is. And I was headed for Chicago Academy of Fine Arts. I wanted to study under a famous artist, Irving Shapiro. Went in and visited it, and I came back and I said, you know what, maybe I'd be interested in college. Well, I'd pretty much goofed off college. I'd had a dance band and had a 12-piece band, 4 saxes up front, two trumpets, trombone, piano, bass, and drums. I played the drums.
Do you still have recordings of that?
I probably got them on the old tapes.
Right.
Personally,
I'd be interested in hearing that, but we'll talk about that off cue.
Yeah, and so we stayed out of the union, and finally the union came and said, "You're joining." And wow, we didn't have much of a choice, but they gave us a lot of jobs in northern Illinois and southern Wisconsin, and so we played in a lot of bars and nightclubs, but we weren't of age yet, and as long as there was a sort of a covering between the bar and the dance floor, it was legal. And so
was it chicken wire?
Yeah, chicken wire, not chicken wire, but just sort of a half wall. Yeah. And just had a lot of great experiences meeting with, and on the west side of Rockford, Illinois, were a lot of Italians, and I took my drum lessons from all the guys in my band were Italians.
Okay.
Tom, I didn't realize it till after that, some guys in my own age group started to say, "You're playing your parents' music. Red Sails in the Sunset, Sentimental Journey, all these songs." And then when I decided to go to college, well, we picked up in St. Peter, Minnesota. We went to rock and roll, the 50s, 60s, 70s. That was just fun, what we call bubblegum music.
Right.
And it was fun. It was fun music, It was none of this stuff that you hear, and sometimes the heavy metal, and sometimes the language isn't that great. We just had fun, and it was a good old times. And so said, actually I went to Bethany Junior College in Mankato, Minnesota, thinking if I don't like this idea, where did this idea come from? Going in the ministry? No.
Right.
Ministers are boring. They wear black suits. They just, they're not normal. They're not human. And I thought, you'll never get me to be a minister.
Right.
So I thought, I'll try this junior college, and if I don't like it, I'll go back into art. Well, 2 years, I had to go into Gustavus, and then finished out my BA degree there.
And that was in fine arts?
Yeah.
No? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So at some point, let me ask you this. Do you still have a drum set in your basement or in your garage?
I finally sold it. It was an old Ludwig set.
Right.
And, nowadays, I wish I would have kept it, because any church you go to, any denomination, the old organ is probably for the traditional service, but every church has got a band.
Yeah.
And it would have been fun to keep that drum set, because I see a lot of musical churches, whatever churches we visit, just having some really neat music.
Yep.
And so
that would be great to see that in the corner at Streed Commons at Eventide.
Yeah.
So at some point, you alluded to the ministry. You must have felt a calling there somehow, or tell me a little bit about how, if you can, how you felt that, and that road, because you eventually you got your MD from Northwestern Seminary at St. Paul, is that right?
Right.
St. Paul. So tell me about that adventure.
So every time I started to think about this ministry thing, I thought, nah. I just kept going in, taking the subjects, art and philosophy and what have you.
Let me interrupt. Was there anybody? Your dad was not a minister.
No.
That's commonly you're a PK, a preacher's kid.
Yeah.
But not the case for you.
The only nobody in our whole family generations. The only thing I heard is my dad said, Grandma, his mom, said she would have liked to had him, my dad, Emo, go in the ministry, or Uncle Len, his brother. Okay. But I never got to meet my grandmother, and they always said, Grandma would be pretty proud to know.
Someday you will.
But I kept running away from it and trying to avoid it. And finally, one guy from Concordia College showed up at my office and said, how do you know you got a call to the ministry? And I said, run away from it. You think Moses wanted it? You think Jeremiah wanted it? You think Jonah wanted it? And the way you will find out is run as fast as you can away from it, and God gets you where He wants you. Wow. So anyway, I said, okay, I'm not going to fight this anymore. So I went to a Northwestern Seminary, which, by the way, years ago was on the Pillsbury Mansion by the Minneapolis Institute of Art, and they decided to build on Luther's campus in St. Paul. So that was a great move. So it was a good experience.
Sounds like it. Yeah. So after you received that degree, And I was not aware of, but you did receive your doctorate. You said, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
Quite a few years down the road. But tell me about some of the parishes you then. I presume you went to some parishes.
Yeah, and oh man, right out of seminary in 1972, I got called to rural parishes, a town church in Miltona, about 300 people, and to Faith Lutheran, and 8 miles out of town in Parker's Prairie, whose mailing address was Esther Lutheran. It was mainly dairy farming and resort owners because of all the lakes around Alexandria, Miltona,
Okay.
and just loved the people and knew nothing about farming but had a blast. And a lot of these farmers would come up and say, gee, you know more than us. And I said, no, I think you know a lot more than I do, boy.
How old were you then, roughly?
Well, then I would have been 27, 28
Wow.
years old.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, got married to Laurel. We didn't have any children, and so we adopted 3. We adopted Lori from Illinois. She was 3. She now family. Then Dave and Rachel came 7 months later from Vietnam. And so they've got their families now. They're all grown up. And so was there 7 years and then got called back to the Augustana Church in Grand Forks, North Dakota, where I interned.
Okay.
And served there for 11 years. And then in 1990 came down here to Eventide. And it was an interesting thing. I tried many different ministries before, but the door didn't open. But I saw this ad in a Eastern North Dakota newsletter looking for a chaplain. Well, I thought, hey, I'll go down and apply. And there were 36. They narrowed it down to 4. And it just opened up. And a lot of people said to me, hey, Steve, you were 6 years in youth ministry.
Right.
Regional, national events that we had. And how is it that you went into the opposite, working with older people? And I said, what's the difference? A 20-year-old, a 50-year-old, and an 80-year-old will ask the same questions in the transitions of life. And the 3 questions are, who am I now? I knew who I was yesterday, but now who am I today? Secondly, who do I belong to? I knew who I belonged to yesterday in this group. And then third, always this question, young, middle-aged, or older, what's my purpose in life
Amen.
now? And so I just love being around older people. I get asked all the time at my age, are you going to retire? I love the residents, the families, the staff. I love going to work. And my bishop just said, Steve, you're the only one in 50 years in ministry that's still working full time. And I said, yeah, I sit at the feet of the greatest professors in the world. These older people got wisdom and understanding, their stories. One lady said, I only had an 8th grade education. And I said, man, if I had half of your knowledge and wisdom, I'd be pretty happy. So
it is fascinating to just sit and listen, like you say, and let them talk. And if you have the time to do that, it's such a huge blessing to you, but also to them too as well.
Yeah.
Well, coming back to Eventide just a little bit, in one of your articles, your comment was you came to Eventide because it was a little retirement community.
Yeah.
You called it that some way. How many locations are there now? Because you've been there. I'm not great at math. How many years have you been at Eventide, Steve?
I've been there 35 years, 1990.
Yeah.
And we go back to 1950 when a pastor stood on infield. Beyond Concordia College, there were no business, no houses. And he stood with 27 churches and said, let us build it. So that brick building, first, second, and third floor, then we built Catered, Linden, then we built Cheyenne Crossing, West Fargo, and the beautiful facility in South Fargo. We bought Jamestown, we bought 2 in Devil's Lake, and now I can't believe we bought 3 facilities called Tabitha in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Wow.
So what does that make us? 8 campuses?
Close enough for me.
Yeah. And John Reaver, our CEO, we have our main office down by the Dairy Queen. And I teased him, I said, are you going to get a walkway from your building over to the Dairy Queen?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
They deliver.
Yeah.
There you go. So do you, at some point, you've probably been to every campus, if you want to call them that. But
Yeah,
you don't do it routinely, because
Yeah.
there are staff at these locations, I trust.
Yeah, I used to cover all four. I used to cover
Okay.
Cheyenne Crossing, Fargo, and when we had the Fairmont, I don't know if any
Oh, I remember
people would remember the Fairmont, but that closed. And so we needed other chaplains. So we've had other chaplains. Jeff Brown was our last. And now John Anderson is covering for Cheyenne Crossing and South Fargo.
Yeah.
They have some part-time chaplains. I do not have any access yet, nor have I met. And I'm anxious to go to Lincoln, Nebraska, and see. I'm pretty sure they have their chaplains there.
Can you tie that in with a pheasant hunting trip?
Yeah, you betcha, on the way.
All right.
Yes.
Good. Well, as I've known you, and of course through Corsmo, we've had a number of funerals there in the chapel, and we've been down there for a number of other events. But it is so cool to see how you interact with the residents, not just at funerals, but you could probably get 10 feet in the door and never get to your office, because people are probably wanting to talk to you. And just, hey, it's Steve, or
Yes.
Chaplain Steve, Pastor Steve,
Yeah.
or Pastor Streed.
Yeah.
And whatever level of memory they they may have, they just want to talk to you. And I noticed that about you, is the people are so comfortable talking to you about that. And that's not a job. That's who you are, I think.
Yeah, I just talked to, we looked on Tuesdays, we have new hires, people on a campus in the different departments. And I told them the word chaplaincy comes from the etymology of the word keeper of the doors. It grew out of the military chaplain in World War I, where the Jewish rabbi, the Catholic priest, the Protestant minister kept the doors of the chapel, which main function was to lead worship.
Makes sense.
And so we have worship on our campuses, we have Bible studies, we have family support groups. One of the biggest challenges that I have and address, I probably spend more time with the families. Families have a hard time putting mom or dad, brother, sister,
Right.
husband or wife in, and to be able to be a support to them. But as I said today to the new employees, one of my funnest jobs,
Yeah.
is working with the staff. I'm not the religious leader, I'm not their boss, but the beautiful thing about them is they find us chaplains neutral.
Yeah.
They can come in and talk about any family issues, finances, things that they're going through in their life, and they trust us. And I say, as I gave an in-service on managed healthcare, all of us in the care providing institution are the worst of managing our mental, physical, spiritual, emotional health, because all of our energy is going out to the other person.
I've witnessed that.
And to be able to say, read a good book, take care of our mental health, emotional, spiritual,
Self-care.
physical,
Yep.
yeah, exercise, vitamins, because when we're healthy, we can come in and be of service to the residents.
Yeah, your tank cannot
Yeah.
be empty.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
If you're
that's
gonna
right.
Fill others too.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw this out there, but I'm sure it's a cliche that does not apply. But what does the average day look like for Steve Streed?
Yeah, it's somewhat similar to the parish, but different. You can plan a day: 9:00 meeting, 10:00, 10:30, this worship, that Bible study. But as soon as that phone rings or somebody walks through the door, the whole thing goes out of whack.
Right.
And of course, I told the staff one of the things that I try to do with residents, because we work in such a serious place. We just lost a dear friend yesterday, and so we do funerals. There's time of death, and that you can somewhat plan on, but you can't.
Right.
Before, during, and after, and of course being with the resident and the family. And so I thought this job was going to be cush. And I'll say it to a lot of my friends who think they'd like to become a chaplain, that you just sit and hold a lady's hand all day and it's pretty cush. I love it because it's exciting. You can plan everything, but it's like popcorn. It's hopping all the time. And so it's never a dull moment that I thought it would be,
Right.
or other people would think, but to be able to there and be able to have people come in and plan from the residents, the family and staff, what they want to get out of what's going on in their life.
Right.
To be there, to be a listening ear, and to be a support, an encourager, and a listener. And so just today, coming over here, I had 3, and I'm going to use this word, and I want to use it in a good way, interruptions.
Yeah.
Because my mind is set on this. I had 3 wonderful interruptions. And what I mean by that, Henry Nouwen, a great Catholic priest, wrote a number of books. And he was at Yale University when he was a chaplain. And he wrote this book, In the Name of Jesus, and he said, I didn't realize it until after I got upset with interruptions, that interruptions were my job.
There you go.
And so I've got my set, 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10, 10:30, every one of the staff meetings, what have you, blah, blah, blah. But it's the wonderful interruptions, little surprises that come. And, I heard it before, and it's not always possible because I know parish pastors and that always are available, but to be available for whoever walks through that door. And for knowing what I think I need to be at this person and what their needs are. Just came from giving a home communion up to a lady on the 2nd floor. And so down the hall, another lady wanted it, which I didn't even plan on. So it just sort of feeds off its own rhythm and its own pace.
So you do have something of a... you do have kind of a schedule. I mean, you do have some appointments and things, but you basically come in and just say, like, it's like a blender. Like, you hit the blender and what's my day going to look like today?
Yeah, and if I work from 8 to 5 or 9 to 6, there were some nights that I did. This is something I say too. I say for the afternoon are hospital calls. Now, a lot of parish pastors and priests are visiting their loved ones and parishioners in the hospital.
Right.
But I feel, I called on a Jewish lady one day and she said, what's a Lutheran minister calling on me for? I said, because we care. We go above and beyond our campus. And years ago, one of the nurses said, how come Street isn't up here on the 3rd floor all the time? And I said to my boss, I'm available to all these people, but I'm also have to be on another campus and I need to be up at the hospital. So for those who are stationary on 1st, 2nd, and 3rd floor, TMA, CNAs, nurses, they would only see that staff that comes in. So I realized that also, and I explained to my John Reaver, my CEO, that my responsibility is also to provide getting out into the churches, into the community. So my boss came to understand I'm not always on the campus.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll be up doing the hospital calls. I'll be out researching who's this new pastor, priest, what have you, and keeping that connection with the churches. You know?
And it's also very evident because at Corsmo, we have many funerals. Obviously, that's what we do. But we may be at a Lutheran church or Methodist church, pick a church, and the family asks for you to bring the message or bring a greeting or something. And oftentimes the clergy from that particular church will say absolutely, because they may have only been there for 8 months and they've never met or barely know the family, but you can bring the personal relationship to that ceremony instead of somebody trying to pronounce the person's name, and so many people ask you to do that too, and therefore that takes you off the campus, as you say. Let me ask you a little bit about a recognition that you have received in what we call Streed Commons, I haven't.
Yeah.
How'd that happen? I have not seen it, so I have to apologize for that. I'll have to come down there and bring a cup of coffee. But that opened in October of 2023, from what I understand.
Wow. Okay, when we just had the one building on 7th Street, we bought 3 houses and built cater living, independent. Then we bought 3 houses and had Linden Tree North, and now we built Linden East. So we have the independent living. Well, you have a street going right between these buildings. Helen Frampton, our CEO then, got the city council to close the street, but we still didn't have a walkway over to the skilled nursing and into the chapel. And so the people before had to walk out in the rain or snow just to get over to chapel, what have you. And they built this, I call it, it's not a narthex, that's a church, walkway, and then a fireplace right in, and gave me a new office. And John Reaver came to me and said, Steve, is it all right if we dedicate this and call it the Streed Commons? And I just, it was, for a lack of words, I felt so honored. Yeah. And the first thing that came to my mind was, man, if my dad was alive today, he'd be so proud of the Streed name.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very, very gratifying, also very appropriate. As I was reading an article about that, the bishop, Bill Tesh, was there, and he described it, and he said the words, it described you. It was warm, it was colorful, it's creative. That's what he said, and I would have to agree with him 100%. And also then our good friend, late pastor Jim Green, called it welcoming. And there again, that is a word that I would use to describe you. But that's cool to see that. I do remember having services there, and families kind of having to come to the dining area. Always very awkward too. So I bet your door is always open because your office is right next to it. Right?
Yeah.
Do you even have a door?
Yeah. And it's off many times off. And I said to John, can we get a little fireplace? It's electric fireplace and stuff. I find, I don't know what it is, and it has nothing to do with me, but out in that lounge chair, the couches and everything, residents, families, and staff, they just gravitate towards that because it's a place they can come and kick off their shoes, so to speak, have their coffee and anything. We had a big birthday party out there the other day for one of the residents, and it's a gathering place.
Exactly. Yep. Welcoming, like Pastor Jim said. I would be afraid to go down and sit there because I would probably fall asleep. I don't know if you've ever come out of your office and see somebody dozing off there, but I would do it. Yeah. Let's change gears here a little bit and talk a little bit separate from Eventide, but a little bit about you. I'm not a big fan of the word labels or labeling people, but the term, the label Renaissance man comes to mind when I sorry, what I think that doesn't refer to our age.
No, yeah.
But I looked it up just to make sure I was accurate, and this particular description just says it's well-versed, wide range of fields, art, science, literature, philosophy, and skilled in multiple areas. So I don't want to embarrass you by that, but I would say you're 9 out of 10. How's that? Not all 10, but. Over the years, I've always enjoyed listening to your trips about you going fishing to Montana, fly fishing. Mm-hmm. Do you do traditional fishing, like from a boat in the lake and such? But your fly fishing is fascinating to me because I've never done it.
Yeah. When I was 3 years old, going way back, my grandma took me fishing. And, my grandma is the one who instilled in me the love of nature and being down by the riverside. We didn't have any lakes in Rockford, Illinois, so we did a lot of river fishing, bullheads, largemouth bass,
catfish,
maybe some catfish. And catfish on all the restaurants in Illinois are on the menu. Catfish. But anyway,
we digress.
I get a bang about it. Everybody comes up to Minnesota and they bring their catfish, and all the people up here want the walleye. So anyway. So when I came up, I thought, what's a walleye? So And from there, lake fishing, I don't know how I got into this. I guess Chad out at Shields got me into a sage fly rod, and I refer to it as an addiction.
Yeah.
You can't learn enough about the different size and kinds of rods. And what's really fascinating is the etymology, or the entomology of the life cycle of a mayfly, a caddis, and a stonefly. And you got to figure out, we have a phrase called match the hatch. So you got to figure out, this little bug lives on the bottom, and he's called...
bottom of the stream.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think of all the nymph. So he lives down here, and after 2 or 3 years, he decides he's going to come out of a little bark shell. And so you got to figure out if the fish are feeding on the bottom, but when he comes out of the shell between the bottom and the top, he's called an emerger. So he's right in here, and this is the steak dinner, because they're really vulnerable. He hasn't reached the top. When they reach the top, they shake off their wings, and they're called a dun, D-U-N. And then they only live for 2 or 3 days. And before they die, the female is called a spinner. They come like a helicopter. They come down and hit the water, and before she dies, she lays her eggs. So it's nymph, emerger, dun, spinner, and you got to figure out what phase they're in, what time of the year. Then you got to figure out the color, you got to figure out the size of the hook. And it's just a challenge because you never learn enough, and you're always being challenged. And so we've got nice streams, the Straight River, brown trout over by Osage and Park Rapids. I did a 3-hour special with Chad Cool out of Channel 6, where we shot for 3 hours, but they got it down to a half hour on Channel 6.
Right.
Capicona, a little creek with native brook trout. The only trout that's really native to northern United States is the brook trout. So from Maine all the way over to Minnesota, during the Ice Age, when it retreated, it left the brook trout in Minnesota, in Michigan, Wisconsin, and all the way over to Maine. Now the rainbow trout was introduced, and so that was brought. In 1890, the brown trout was introduced to America because it could tolerate warmer water. So I like going out to Montana because you can get the rainbow, you can get in certain rivers, the cutthroat, the brown trout, the rainbow, the brook trout. And so the different kinds of species. And my friends in Ennis, Montana, float me down the Madison River, and I walk in on the Gallatin. We do the Yellowstone, we do the Big Hole, but the best fishing, and I'm going to take up all the time, is where we hired a professional guide from Wolf Creek on the Missouri River, and all the way 3 days back and forth to Craig, Montana. I've never seen such big rainbow and brown trout.
The Missouri.
They're big.
Wow.
They're just big. Yeah, and so that was a lot of fun and a challenge. So every stream, every area, I've done Montana, Idaho, and the whole Utah,
Sure.
and just enjoying nature.
We'll get into your tie to the country of France here in a moment, but do you fish over in France too?
Yes. Matter of fact, there's a little stream right down from my wife's house in a little town Landernau in western France. It's called the Elorn, and it has brown trout. The local fishermen have a trout club, and they try to grow trout in there, but it's just a fun little stream. It's got a lot of personality.
I bet it's sort of not a club, but you obviously probably know the fishermen there.
Yeah.
And so when you arrive, they probably go, hey, in French, of course, hey, Steve's back, and good to see you again. Kind of a extension of a family there too. So that's kind of cool. I've also been to one, maybe two of your, and I know you have paintings at Eventide. You kind of stems from your early years, but I've been to a couple of your shows, one in Fargo in the basement of that restaurant. That's now closed.
VIP?
VIP, thank you,
yeah.
thank you. I've been down there,
Yeah.
and it's just fascinating. But are most of your paintings in oil?
Good question.
Thank you.
When I grew up as a
tried.
little boy, I of course started out with pencil, and then in high school I had one of the greatest art teachers there was, Dakota, and he got me into watercolor. Well, I kept using watercolors as opaque, like an acrylic or an oil,
Okay.
but watercolors, it's just water, and you let the transparency of the watercolor paper come through. So I really found that a challenge. So I got that down to a T, and I still don't have it down to a T. But now I've gone back into oils. I do acrylics. I do like the pastels. And I'm going to try egg tempera, where we go back to Greece, and one of the icon artists that we know over there does the Madonna and the Child with that gold leaf. It's just absolutely beautiful. I don't know that, and egg temperas are very thin, and you got layer and layer and glaze on glaze, and I'd like to experiment with that, but mainly oils, yeah.
Okay.
But watercolor's my love.
Excellent. And then also, the last one I just want to talk about, stained glass.
Yeah.
That's incredible. In reading an article, your comment was, and I'll paraphrase, I mean, you invest hours into a piece of art, piece of work, whatever the right term is, and it almost becomes part of you, but you do have to let it go. I mean, as an example, I understand you've got some stained glass down at the churches in Parker's Prairie, Miltona, and also in Grand Forks. At least that's where they were. I'm not sure if they still are, but
Yeah.
the stained glass has really, a lot of what I see you do requires a lot of patience. It's not as if you want to do a 5 minute, I fill in these numbers here.
Yeah.
5 means blue, 4 means green. So, but stained glass, that has to have been fascinating. Tell me a little bit about your stained glass interests.
Yeah, the first endeavor I had was out of seminary at Faith Miltona.
Okay.
And I did 4 pieces there in the old church. Now they built a new church, and they moved 3 of the 4 over into the new church.
Okay.
And yeah, 30% of stained glass is waste, because you'll be cutting a line,
Okay.
and it'll crack and it'll shatter. And you learn the different kinds of glass, the antique, all the different companies. I've had glass, beautiful glass, Daysog from Germany, but our biggest ones, Ed Hoy out of Chicago, and all the different stained glass companies that are here. A lot of them have closed down through the years, but to see that stained glass, to me, is the transparency is awesome. Then when I went to Grand Forks, North Dakota, I bit off too much. Took me 3 years, 28 panels, 20 feet by 30 feet. It goes all the way to the ceiling.
Wow.
Behind the altar, where I have a picture of Christ reaching up to the white ray, and on his tip of his finger, I didn't do a dove, I put a sparrow from the old song, His Eye is on the Sparrow.
Yeah.
And I have the tree from the Garden of Eden. I have the sun and moon praising him, and that is really one of the biggest pieces I've done. And then Esther Lutheran, the country church, came back and said, will you design 3 of them? So I finished them into their walkway. And then I said to Cheyenne Crossing out there, they did a new chapel, and I said, ooh, there's 5 clear panels up there. What do you think? So I just finished them, and
Wow.
so seems like wherever I go, I leave a
No kidding.
stained glass behind.
Well, and the thing I like about stained glass, and it's a story you hear about quilts too, is that one side is pretty boring. It's usually dull, and you see a lot of the work, but you go to the other side, and when the light comes through it, it's just beautiful. And
Yeah.
so that's fantastic.
Cathedral, which is one color, like red, yellow, or blue,
Okay.
that's just stationary. But you get these opalescents where you have 3 different layers as you look at it sideways. But it can change literally from morning to noon to night as the sun phases go through it, and you can actually see the revolution, the evolution change, and it's so much fun.
Wow, like a sunset.
Yeah.
Yeah, changes. We'll kind of start winding down a little bit, but you earlier, before we started recording, and I was not getting my timeline correct, but you have recently received your doctorate. Maybe not recently, many years after your initial education.
Yeah.
You were telling me about
been
reading.
about 10 years now, yeah.
Telling me a little bit about that adventure.
Yeah, I looked up one of my books on the shelf, Friendship from Marty, Argus Communication, 1968, and I says, I'm at a standstill, and I need to do something to challenge me, so I go back.
Did you keep those books next to your 8-tracks?
Yeah, that's right. So I went down to seminary at Luther Sem, and it took me 3 years to do it. They don't do that. They want you to get it done in a year or two.
Sure.
And I was curious about why some people are at peace with their aging, why others are bitter. And that started my whole thing. I started, and what was interesting, my seminary prof said, there's no theology on aging. And I said, what do you mean? He said, there's no set thing. You're going to have to do a constructive theology. So I went to Isaiah where God says, I will carry you and bear you up in your old age when you are gray-haired. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? So anyway, I got together a bunch of pastors, and I said, what are some of the things that you're hearing about older people in your congregation, and what could I do to be able to say, how can we understand? I helped them, ask them for their help. They helped me.
Right.
To come up with 164 questions on 11 different kinds of categories. And I went out to Fargo Moorhead, to every organization, not just churches, but senior things, and asked if they'd fill out these questionnaires. And so...
you did that in your spare time, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Oh, man.
And so I got a collection of this, and I found out the difference between men and women at 65, 75, and 85, and how they scored on the questions: prayer life, worship, what was their spiritual walk, what was their spiritual growth, and to see that. And my wife, Odile, now who teaches at Concordia, helped me design those graphs, and I wasn't prepared for this, and this is the beautiful thing about research. What you start out with, you don't end up with. I could write some more doctorates on what I found just in those three categories, the people, how they scored the age groups.
Right.
And I found 65 to 74, men scored a lot lower in these areas than women. 75 to 84, again, the women were scoring in terms of self-awareness, prayer life, faith, scoring high, but something switched at 85. Now, I assume this is traditionalists, people that took this test, the test questions, to give me a profile, were probably traditionalists.
Okay.
And I should give this test to baby boomers ex-millennium, and I'm sure they come out with different answers. But what I found out is the 85-year-old woman started to score lower. My assumption, and this is what I'd like to do another doctorate on, why? Is it that they put all their identity into their husband's job? Mm. He's passed away. They put all their identity into their children. Right. Their children are grown up. But now, who am I? Who do I belong to? And what's my purpose in life? And it's not a bad thing, but they finally started to define who they were at 80, 85 years old.
Yep.
And it was really fun to work with a few women in that age group, and at that time, 10 years ago, mm-hmm. that were at that kind of stage that fit that kind of profile. Yeah. And so was just fascinating. And that's the thing, that year after I stayed out after high school, why did I not study in high school? But that year was that best thing that happened to me. I wanted to learn and grow. I wanted to go to college. I want to do this doctorate. I want to learn more about fly fishing. I thirst after what makes this tick, and to explore things. When you say Renaissance, I've never thought of that, but be able to have a liberal arts background and to go out and to explore. There's so many things, childlike wonder, to be able to say, well, I'm going to go down this road and see where it's going to take me.
Right.
And to have fun to do that, and to research and to grow. And I find this really grateful that, Tom, you're doing this kind of thing, because you're not only gathering information, you're researching not only my life but other people's lives, and what here's this word, journey.
Right.
What your journey has been.
Yeah.
And what have you learned from books and just the experience of things that work and don't work? And to the other thing too. And nowadays, just being able to explore with my wife as we go through all the stresses, you, me, us.
Yeah.
Man, why aren't we enjoying life? Why aren't we enjoying each other? And I won't get into this country that I live in, the United States of America,
Right.
that we can't explore with each other instead of doing the childish things that we're doing. And I won't get into that politics,
Right.
and even sometimes religion.
Yep.
That we're losing so much time. We have so little time. I want to walk with you, man, even if you differ with me on issues. And one of the things my wife has really taught me, coming out of a Swedish background, we've been very passive.
That's right.
French and Italians and Russians love to argue. They love to argue. And I don't mean that in a mean sense, but they respect your opinion.
Right.
I saw three guys over in Pontevin, one of my favorite artists, Gauguin, that was his town he was from. Three guys were arguing on a street corner, and I said to my wife, those guys are going to haul off and hit each other. She said, no, they're not. I said, what are they talking about? Politics, sex, religion, anything in life. They shook hands and walked away, and I thought, wow. So my wife, in these years of marriage, my wife, Odile, or Laurel, passed away, and so I had her funeral. And since I've been married to Odile, she's really taught me to come out and not be passive, and to come out, and I don't have to argue or get into a fight, but to say, and it's really fun because my wife and I don't agree on a lot of things, but we still love each other, and being able to say, well, okay, tell me about how do you see this issue? And so the delight in my life at my age is just to enjoy this wonderful world that we got in. And why am I only choosing pizza and hamburger? My wife's
Depends
taught
upon
me
the
to try.
pizza. Depends upon the kind of pizza.
Yeah. I hate opera. My wife drags me to opera. But you know what? I think, okay.
That's where the earbuds come in.
Yeah, that's where the earbuds come in. So I go along because my wife loves it. She doesn't like downhill skiing, and she doesn't do that. But we do things together. We do things alone. She's back in France now, of course, teaching at the University of Rennes. And also her mother became ill, and so we've been praying for her mom, got water around the lungs. But anyway, I would have never traveled in this world had it been for my wife.
Right.
When she started at Great Plains Software, she came to Eventide as an intern. She came back, got on the green card, and I got her a job at Great Plains Software, which Microsoft, and then she moved to now teaching 23 years at Concordia College in marketing and business. She's taken me all over the world, from Vienna, Austria, to her love. She loves Venice, Italy. We going back the sixth time to Santorini, Greece. And wherever you go in this world, there are beautiful people and there are jerks. And some people said to me, geez, you were in Paris? Man, those people were really rude. And I said, well, what do you mean? I said, how many how long were you there? Well, were there just a couple hours or a day or two? I says, how do you feel about New York, LA, or Chicago? I says, when I was on my own, because she was working
Right.
12, 14 hours a day, I'm walking the streets in Paris.
Yeah.
Je parle français mauvais lentement. I speak very poorly. I would talk to a taxi cab driver, and as soon as I said a few words of French, he would go in American. But they just love it when you take an interest in them.
Make an effort.
Yeah, make an effort. I go in the store owners and chew the fat with them, and I told them I speak very little French, and they would go into English and talk about their backgrounds and their experiences, and a very emotional experience was a woman in my last parish asked me to look up her brother, who died in World War II.
Wow.
Yeah, in Normandy. Wow. So we walked into there, and man, it's like a religious experience. It's the Stars of David. I found H1122 where Telmer Lindquist, 20-year-old boy, shot and killed from Grand Forks. And when I'm standing over the grave, French people come up to you and say, "Thank you for giving us our freedom."
Yeah.
And and it's so like, wow, this earth is pretty small, this global family, and so many things to learn and grow and have fun with.
Yep. Too many things to do, and we
Yeah.
occupy it with too many things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me wind down, Steve.
Yeah, sure.
I printed an article from the Eventide newsletter or some type of online. It talks about, I don't know if these are your wisdoms, but there's an article called 10 Wisdoms from a Senior Living Chaplain. And maybe you copied it, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I'm giving you credit for it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But I'm not going to touch on all 10, but I just want to wind down with 4 of them and just chat a little bit about that. 2 of them are actually, and this information is going to be linked on our podcast webpage.
Yeah.
So if people listening want to come to this article, they'll be able to click on it very easily. But one of the things, you do talk about fishing, of course. We've already covered that one. But number 4 is be a good listener. And number 5 is ask good questions. And those are so interrelated. I mean, you do one and the next should just come naturally. Many people ask the questions and they don't take the time to listen. They're just thinking about, what am I going to say next? But I find that emulates you, or you vice versa. You are a good listener. There's been a few times I've come down to Eventide to meet with somebody on a pre-planning basis, and they want to have you come down just to kind of say hello, or just be there for a little comfort. And this particular individual, some level of memory loss, might just be going off on tangents that aren't even relevant to what we're talking about, and I've noticed you just kind of roll with it. That's part of the blender schedule you have. I mean, you sit there, you listen. You don't say, Esther, come on, we're talking about your cemetery here. No, you do take the time to listen. You ask the good questions, and you do listen. But also, number 2 was, I'm kind of jumping around here. Number 2 was believe in a power greater than yourself. And you touched on that also. In regards to Jewish faith, Muslim faith, you are not there to quote unquote win people over. You're there to minister, to support, to encourage, and to be there for whatever need they have. Safe to say.
Yeah, to pick up on them where they have been in their journey. That's that word again.
Yeah.
And where they want to grow. What do they want to learn? I ask a lot of people, you coming in here, are you still learning, or is life over?
Right.
And a lot of people say, no, I still got a lot of living. And others say, yeah, I'm giving up. Okay, but back to being a good listening to questions. I remember Dr. Gerhard Frost wrote an article. He said, I stilled a song today. I was driving out in the country, and I sped up, and up over my windshield in the rearview mirror, I realized I hit a metal arc. And I stilled a song today. And he'd always take that back to the classroom, because he was a professor. He says, what student came up to me today and asked a question I didn't have a time, and I hushed it, I poo-pooed it, when I should have journeyed with that student in a question.
Right.
So the questions that a 20-year-old, a 50-year-old, an 80-year-old, whether in the parish or in here, I want to explore what questions that they have and what's relevant. Then working with stroke and Alzheimer people, it's learning a new language.
Right.
It's learning their language. And in a care provider support group, we had a lady come in all the time and said her husband was talking about a tank. And I said, did you ask him what kind of tank? Army tank, a gas tank, a fish tank? No, it's stupid. It's but don't try to make sense out of nonsense. Just hold his hand and walk with him wherever that tank is. Explore with him. Walk with him. Don't try to fit him into your logic, and have some fun. And I said, if I was to take you into art gallery, and on the right side on the wall would be all photogenic paintings, and on the left side would be abstract. Which ones would you like? Oh, I want the realistic. Yeah, because stroke and Alzheimer's are abstract paintings. But there's a design to them. We just don't know where they're going with it, but to go with them and to be with them. We had a man who was in the Alzheimer's unit, the old Bergen Court. His wife used to come every day, and she says, I've got 6 months to live. She came back in a week later and said, I got 6 weeks to live. And boom, she died. And so the staff called me in, and he was probably in the second or third stage of Alzheimer's. And he was rowdy, he was angry, he was upset. And they said, you better go and talk to him and help him. I went into him and I said, oh, that chair over there, there's somebody, I didn't do it to be mean. I said, somebody used to be sitting there all the time. He looked over there and said, yeah. And I said, that's Carol, wasn't it? Yeah, and a big tear came down his eye. And I said, I bet you really miss her. And he said, yeah. And all the anger left. He was frustrated. He didn't know how to say it or what to do. So I went back to the staff and I said, what makes us think that a stroke or Alzheimer's person doesn't go through the stages of Kubler-Ross? Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and all those good grief, Granger-Westberg, more resentment, all these things. But to be able to walk with people where they are. Sometimes we can't figure out where they are, but maybe they'll tell us where they are if we just listen.
Yep, absolutely. And you give them permission to talk about that. Yeah. Whereas some people just say, just don't talk about it because it tends to irritate Dad. Something like that.
Yeah.
Well, let me wind up with the last one. And we actually kind of talked about it already. But your number 10 was retire when you want to, not when you have to. You stated in this article you get asked 5 to 10 times a week. It's probably more now.
When are
you going to retire?
You got
it's like, are you wanting me to retire?
Yeah.
Or are you just kind of curious? But, no, you said you're not ready. You love the residents. You love what you do.
Yeah.
And that's what I've always liked about funeral service, is that it's the same thing every day but different. You come into Eventide, or if you're calling on people, you kind of have an idea what's going to happen, but you walk in and all of a sudden, it's just boom, just blows up into something completely different. Not bad. It's just something completely different. But yeah, you'll retire when you want to. So let's just wind down and tell me a little bit about your philosophy about retiring. And you may never retire. You just go into a slower gear, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, and I want to see if I can tie this in, because you mentioned the word wisdom. There's the wisdom sayings.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget this wonderful quote. Knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad.
Right.
So that ability to discern. And so as I explored with my good friend Pastor Jim Green, that passed away, I said, we always talk about in the parish, when I get called in, when should I go? And that,
right.
Yeah. And I've asked pastors down through the years and their wisdom, and there's no one set. This one says, I've been here 4 or 5 years, that's Another says, I've been here 20 years and what have you. And I said to Jim Green, he was planning to retire. He passed away months before. And he was going to retire on May 31st of this last year, but it was before Christmas then he passed. So the thing was, I just say to Jim, if the good Lord called us in, he'll let us know when we're going to call us out. And so, are we called in? Are we called out? I don't know. There's going to be a bolt of lightning, just as I was refraining from wanting to go into the ministry.
Right.
On the other end, young kid, and now that I'm an older kid, saying, I'll let that be known, and I just want to hang on. And I got up this morning. I said, "It's pleasing to you, God. I'd just sort of like to hang around and
Amen.
enjoy this." So. And have some fun doing it.
Yeah. I think I'm picking up, you stated that phrase early on here this afternoon about running away as fast as you can from something to see if it's for you.
Yeah.
And you could run away to complete retirement immediately, pull the plug, done one day, but
people,
I don't think that would last.
Yeah. Well, another thing too, you mentioned on there, I'm leaving now for a week of South Dakota pheasant hunting.
There we go. On your way to
Yeah.
Nebraska.
But to take, my wife is not in favor of me hunting at all. But to see those, how could you kill a pheasant? I'm going to take some of those feathers and make a trout fly, maybe.
Okay.
And that's not a rationale just for that. But people say, Steve, you can ski, you can fish, you can hunt, you can paint. Man, you can do a lot of things. Why don't you do it? And my friends who are golfing, I says, you can chase that golf ball all day you want, but when is that going to be enough?
Right.
In retirement. So I find a lot of my friends, and pastors included, they can't retire.
Yeah. They
just love relationships, love being in the groove, even if it's part-time in a church, being a visitation pastor.
Yeah.
But, the thing that I would think of, when you let me loose down in my art studio, time is nothing. When I'm gone. I remember Audrey Flack wrote in a book, she says, it was 3 o'clock in the morning and my arm was tired when I realized I had no idea what time this oil painting I was working on. It's 3 o'clock. She didn't even aware of her body function and still her arm started to ache. So where am I going with this? The problem is the canvas doesn't talk to you. Relationship, being with people, and I don't think going into art totally again now in this life.
Right.
My wife would like that because she liked me, around a little more. But she knows and understands my love for the people. So my philosophy is I can do both.
Amen.
As long as I'm willing,
Sounds good.
mentally, physically, and
All right.
yeah.
So you're heading down to South Dakota here shortly?
Yeah.
All right.
Monday to Monday.
Okay.
Yeah. I book it in for a year in advance because that's the only time you can get the motel room. Because it's so hard. Yeah. The other thing we really love too, and I'll let you go. My wife misses the sea in Western France.
Okay.
We go up 2 to 3 times a year to Grand Marais, Minnesota.
Yeah.
And this is an artsy town.
Yep.
Art, music, drama, poetry. We're on Lake Superior, and it reminds my wife of the sea. And we'll be up there at Thanksgiving time watching the waves roll in. People say, why you go up there? It's sort of bland. No, we love it.
Exactly.
Summer, we go biking, second week in August.
Right.
Maybe we'll go up in April and catch some steelhead trout. I don't know.
Day by day. Well, thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Tom.
Oh, yeah, this has been a blessing to me, and I'd like to think a lot of our listeners will appreciate this too, knowing a little bit more about you than just the guy they see at the nursing home.
I feel honored that you'd even ask me, Tom.
Sounds great. Well, friends, thank you again for tuning in this afternoon. It is right now, I think, nearing the end of October. We've got some blustery weather here in Moorhead, Minnesota, but a lot of these links we talked about will be on the podcast page if you want to read some of these articles. So thank you for tuning in today, and we'll see you next month. You have been listening to More Than a Funeral, Voices of the Red River Valley. And I have been your host, Tom Pence, and I'm one of the funeral directors at Korsmo Funeral and Cremation Service here in Moorhead, Minnesota. The word service has been an intentional part of our name for over 66 years, and we pride ourselves on attention to detail and personal service. Personally, my responsibilities revolve around the advanced planning aspect of our profession, and I enjoy visiting with people as we discuss the many possibilities of a memorable celebration service that will eventually honor a life according to their wishes. And from a practical standpoint, which is getting so very important these days, I help families plan ahead so that the family left behind will not be burdened with a large financial responsibility, therefore allowing them to spend time with their family, remembering their loved one, not having to worry about how to handle the expenses. Asset protection is also a very real issue these days, as many care facilities can cost several $1,000s a month, depending upon the level of care. Korsmo can provide simple and effective ways of protecting those assets, and I welcome the opportunity to visit with you about that. If you enjoyed this podcast and found some value in it, we greatly appreciate your sharing with a friend. And if you have a moment, text somebody right now. Encourage them to give a listen and perhaps follow the podcast personally. We anticipate publishing a new episode on the first day of each month, so check back for interesting guests and topics. And of course, we also welcome your suggestions for future guests and topics of interest as well. So thank you for listening. And if you want more information and actually want some free estimates or just have questions, contact any of the directors at Korsmo Funeral and Cremation Service. Our phone number is 218-233-1533, and our web address is korsmofuneralservice.com. Thanks again for listening, and from all of us at Korsmo, have a great day.